Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us today. This is our first installment of Magically Live in the EU market, although we've done many Magically Lives previously. So Magically Live is a series of events that we're hosting in which we'll pick one accessibility topic and take a deep dive into it and kind of just tell you all of our knowledge and ways that we can help. But thank you so much for joining and welcome. My name is Anjali Lalwani, and I'm joined by two of Magic EdTech's wonderful accessibility experts, Erin and Tarveen. Erin, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Evans. I am our Director of Accessibility. I'm based out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I'm very excited to have you all join us today as we're here to chat with you about PDF accessibility and all of the fun things that can go along with that. Tarveen?
Thank you, Erin. Hi, everyone. This is Tarveen. I head accessibility practice at Magic. I'm based out of India, and we are very happy to have you on Magically Live series. And we'll be hosting the similar kind of sessions to support and enhance your learning. So thank you so much for joining, and let's make inclusive work together.
Absolutely. So just some housekeeping before we get started. So to start, we'll talk for about the first 25 minutes just about PDFs and some of our knowledge, and then we'll have some polls in between, and then we'll go into a Q&A after. So throughout the session, if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll address them at the end. And if you would like or need to use closed captions are enabled, so you can just hit the CC button at the bottom of your screen. All right. So up here, you see we have...
Oh, go. Sorry, Anjali.
No, you're okay. We have a mood-o-meter poll that just popped up. So it says, what word best describes your mood right now? The first option is excited. The second option is overwhelmed. The third option is caffeinated. And the fourth option is curious. You can go ahead and drop your answers.
It's Tuesday afternoon.
Excited, curious, and caffeinated. I'm glad that nobody's overwhelmed. That is good. To Tarveen's point, it's only Tuesday afternoon, so it's good that we're not overwhelmed yet.
All righty. So this is our agenda for today. First, we'll talk about the history of PDFs. Then we'll talk about how PDFs are used. Then we'll talk about creating accessible PDFs and alternative file formats and if they are right for you and your organization.
All right. So our first poll here is we want to know what is the primary purpose of PDF accessibility? And we have 4 choices here: to make PDF documents readable by people with disabilities, to improve the searchability of PDF documents, to increase the security of PDF documents, or to reduce the file size of PDF documents. Awesome, excellent choice. You guys all got it correct. That is to make PDF documents readable by people with disabilities. And there's a lot of information we're going to share along those lines. So let's start at the beginning, which is the history of PDFs. So PDF is short for portable document format. It was developed in 1993, which seems like a long time ago, but it really isn't. It was developed by Adobe, and it was a place for people in the professional and business world to be able to create a universal file format. In 1994, Adobe released the Acrobat Reader, which would allow anybody outside of that professional business world to open up these files. They were not created to be thinking about different accessible ways or reflowability or anything like that. It was really about how they can be used on any system wherever people were working. Back in the 90s, it was mostly in a desktop environment. Since then, they have become a widely accepted format for how people use and share information, especially in the education world. It is probably one of the widest format pieces that are out there. And it's a standard format, right? So if you think about your banking statements, some of the different files that you get from different corporations, you're typically going to see them in a PDF format. It is an independent, because it's a universal file, it is independent of different softwares and different systems. And the purpose of it was that it's there to share the data. As I mentioned, it wasn't something that was considered for a mobile environment, but back in the early 90s, nobody was considering putting things on a mobile environment. But we know that things have changed. So we want to look and see how they are used now, because they are such a widely used file format that there are different ways that people are utilizing them across different devices.
All right. Thank you so much for doing a little bit of that history for us, Erin. So now we have another poll. There are actually two questions within this. First is, what are the common accessibility issues found in PDF documents? The first option is images missing alternative text. Second is links missing descriptive text. Third is headings not properly structured. And fourth is all of the above. And then the second question on here is, which PDF accessibility standard should be followed when creating PDF documents? First option is PDF UA, ISO 14289, sorry. And then the second one is PDF A. Third one is PDF X, and fourth one is PDF/WCAG 2.1 AA. So we'll give you guys a minute to answer that.
So you are all correct with the first question, all of the above. And then for the second question, you want to be aligning to the PDF UA standards, and we will get into that as we go forward. Before we move on, so I know that we're both going to talk through a little bit of our challenges with PDFs, but one thing that's really important to keep in mind as we're talking through this is, we know PDFs are out there. This is not a one file format is better than another. Everybody will have varying opinions. We just want to make sure that you guys understand that they are a document format that's out there, and there are ways to make them accessible, and there's always changes that continue to keep coming through. So that's a lot of what we're going to be discussing here. And as I just mentioned, we're going to move forward into talking about some of the challenges that we see on a typical route when we go with PDFs. Parveen?
Sure. Thank you, Erin. So talking about the majority of challenges that we come across with.
Oh, you're on mute. Oh.
So majority of challenges that we come across while remediating or accessing or making it accessible. So these are the challenges that we have laid out. We'll not only talking about challenges, but also will be covering the recommended solution and approach to follow while working along with these PDFs. So first one is use of scanned images in PDFs. As we have seen that there is still the PDFs that are being circulated are the scanned images, which is very difficult for our screen reader user to access because they are image based. What is the recommended solution? First of all, for sure, we should stop using the scanned PDFs. Second, if you have scanned in PDFs and you want to circulate them and make it accessible, you need to use OCR technology. Now, what is OCR technology? It's optical content recognition. There are different tools that are there in market that help you convert the OCR image into an accessible content that can be tagged easily and that doesn't have any layering inbuilt to the content. Now, the tools that we recommend and use, it will all depend on complexity, type, and the content you are working on. So we recommend using Fine Reader, Read IRS tool, Acrobat Pro technology. What it does, it extracts the content and tag it, and then you can refine and make it compliant. The second most widely used complex problem statement we come across is unsupported features. If you try to convert a document that has forms or interactive content or video, when you convert into a PDF, it can't be made accessible. Not even it carries the basic structure that is required. So it's always better either to start from the scratch and build your content in InDesign in a more templatized way, instead of working on a Word document or a PDF which doesn't generate the fully accessible outcome. Working on InDesign help you templatize and also save a lot of effort. But if not in that mode, you should try putting up templates in PDF and then start creating your content. The third problem statement is structuring data in a PDF. It is not an easy job. For example, you're trying to work on a tables. It is not an easy job to do the structuring or tagging in a PDF for a table. Now, if you would have done table right in your base input document, it would have been much easier. So try to use a structured template or a structured format and then convert your content into a PDF. That's what we recommend.
And we know that that's not always possible, especially when you might already have a ton of files that have already been created. So these challenges that we're talking through, in a best practice, there's ways, as Tarveen is saying, to make your base document accessible, but there are ways that we can work with the PDFs that already exist to make them as accessible as possible. So that we'll continue to share that information out as we go through.
Yes. Moving on to the next one, that is layering issue. Now, what is layering issue? That is called OC. Now, when you put content in layers, you can't do the structuring and tagging to the layered content. So we should altogether avoid using OCGs in your PDF. Then only it's possible to tag and flow the content in like top to bottom, left to right, and have it accessible to the people with disabilities. Then next problem statement is reflow. You can't reflow and resize your content to the required. It gets pixelated. So try using flexible layout option in PDF documents to allow user to easily view and access the content at any given zoom level. The sixth biggest problem statement is MathML. As you know, the PDFs doesn't support MathML, and it makes really very difficult to have your math equations read in a PDF document. So the approach that we need to follow is involve a SME, get the alt text written, ensure every information, equation, and everything is being conveyed through alt text, and add that alt text as an actual text to your math equation to ensure it is accessible, readable by the screen reader.
So Tarveen mentioned,
yes, this one.
Sorry. So we're going to go through some of the end-to-end processes and steps that can be taken to remediate PDFs. As we mentioned just a few minutes ago, this is with the assumption that the PDFs that you're working with were not built from an accessible source file. So again, a lot of ways to work with the files that are in existence without having to start all the way over from scratch. So this is the process that we utilize when we're working through the remediation efforts that it takes for the PDFs.
Yes.
Tarveen?
Yeah, thank you. So when we talk about end-to-end process, your end-to-end process will be dependent on complexity, the content you are curating, and what are the key parameters you want to work towards. So this is the high level, most compatible flow that we have laid out here. First step to follow in this process is analyze. Now analyze, where are you? What is the current compliance level? What is the complexity of your content? What is the layout? What is the hierarchy? Once the analysis is done, start planning. When we say planning, publish the solutions that can be incorporated and maintain a consistency and accuracy across different pages and a wide range of content. It shouldn't be that one solution is implemented in X way and the same is being implemented as Y in another page. You need to ensure consistent, crisp, and concise information is being passed on through a proper mechanism and a channel. Now, while publishing a solution, like how my content would read, what is the heading structure I need to follow, what will be the hierarchy, you need to ensure your content pedagogy is being maintained. That plays a very vital role while you are delivering the PDFs. The third step to follow is tagging and structuring. What we do, this is the major chunk of work that is being done here, but this is altogether dependent on your planning phase. If planning is done right, I think you are getting 100 out of 100 on this, and you will save a lot of time and effort on your accessibility, QA, and review part. That's what our end goal is. So apply the tags, include the alt text, fix your colors, bookmark, metadata, document properties, all of that needs to be done right in this phase. Why I have added OCR as an optional? OCR is optional because in case you don't have OCR image-based content in your PDF, you don't need to worry about this particular section within your process. Next is accessibility review. What we do is we review the PDFs using the automated tools. You don't rely 100% on this tool. This is just ensuring a 10 to 20% of the check against your PDF standards. So we recommend using accessibility checker and a pack tool. It would all depend if you want to go for any other option. We'll be talking about different tools in the upcoming slides. And then last is the review, where you test along with the screen readers. You test along with experts with disabilities. We usually call them as native testers. And then you publish your conformance and compliance report. You follow the process and ensure all the issues that you report are being fixed and taken care before you publish a compliance report.
So the process here, this is a very high level overview, and I do appreciate, Tarveen, when you got to tagging and structuring, that is where the majority of the work happens. And there's a lot of details on that actual work that happens. We're gonna kind of keep this particular conversation at a little bit of the higher level. We're not gonna dive into all of the technical ways to do the fixes, but it's really important, again, to understand that there are a lot of steps that happen prior to just going into the document and fixing it. And then the most important steps is the testing that we do, or that is done with the screen reader compatibility, and when possible, utilizing people who rely on screen readers in a daily environment, people who are low or no vision or have mobility issues, those native testers, people with disabilities, including them in that testing process is very important.
That's right, Devin. Moving on to next slide, that's automation tools. These are the tools that we recommend based on all the type of complexities, combinations. So first one is Acrobat Pro. This is again a paid tool, but a very reliable tool to work on with the PDFs, considering PDFs are being generated only through Adobe. So that's the tool I would recommend. Then you know that Common Loop provides various kind of opportunities to deal with your PDFs and help you with the automation and a manual approach. Again, it's a paid tool. Then we have Infi Reader. Then Pack Report. We rely on Pack Report along with the Acrobat Pro because it helps you give double assurance and help you generate a report to state that yes, everything is accurate in the compliance, from the compliance standpoint in a given PDF. Then we have Nitro PDF and Access PDF. Access PDF is a freeware, and we end up using Access PDF wherever we have a OCR kind of a content. This generates a high quality content when converted from a OCR.
Yeah, and there are other tools out there. These are ones that we have found within our work that work really well, but these are just some of the ones out there. We're not endorsing any of them, just letting you know that these kinds of tools exist. It's really important to remember we don't just rely on the automation, which leads us into our next conversation, which is our manual requirements, right? So automation, always a good thing, always a place to start, always a good place for checking, not the only thing we should be relying on in accessibility, especially when we're doing this type of remediation work. So Important things to consider is that we need to know what the content is, right? That content interpretation is something that can't be automated. And, understanding a read order, understanding if the way that the content is laid out is what you intend from a pedagogical standpoint. That is something that when you open up a PDF, when you do the embedded checker tool within Acrobat, you always have to check the read order manually, because that's going to you as the content developer, the one who knows the exact way that things should be read. It's also important to be testing with users that, like I said, rely on the keyboard navigation, rely on screen readers, making sure that they are able to access everything that a person without disabilities would be able to access. If you have form fields in your PDF, make sure that they can navigate to those form fields, that they know what the form fields are asking them to do, that they are able to successfully complete those form fields. It's no different than in a web environment, but it's very important to make sure that you're testing that. And it's best practice to test it with somebody who utilizes the technologies on a daily basis. It's also really important when you're coming to your structure and tagging that you are looking at your language of parts, that you're looking at the different tags, the embedded hyperlinks, your alt text especially. Again, you can understand if a image does or does not have alt text associated with it, but it is important for you to understand that the alt text there is contextually accurate. And that is something that you can do at your planning stage when you're going through to say, yes, this is an image that needs to have alt text. No, this is a decorative image. But either way, it's really important to make sure that you as a human are there reviewing it, because it's fine to say that I have a compliant document that meets all the technical standards, but it's really important that that compliant document is a usable document, and that your users can get the information that you're trying to share, understand that information, and do the tasks, if there are any, in those documents. The other thing that Adobe always makes you do on a manual test when you open any file is making sure the title of the file is correct. That title is what is read by the screen reader. And it's also making sure that your color contrast is correct, because you can check for it, but it's something that you want to go through and make sure that you are checking those as you go.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Erin. Tarveen, would you walk us through some sample reports?
Sure. So as you can look at the screen, we have to split into left and right section. When we talk about left, it is the accessibility checker report. This is the report that can be easily extracted by Acrobat Pro DC. It gives you the accessibility features, what is the status, whether it's passing, whether it's failing, what type of task needs to be manually reviewed, and it gives you the entire compliance report of your PDF. And on the right side, you see the pack report. Again, as I already shared, that we rely and ensure both these reports are being sent across while you do the review and build up the compliance. The pack report details out and do the checkpoint review, and these are the checkpoint, and also add the instances where all it has validated this particular checkpoint and where all it is failing or passing from a compliance standpoint. So wherever it's mentioned manual check, please ensure that you use the screen reader, test along with experts with disabilities, and get your product validated. Please don't rely on the automated process, because you would end up missing 80% of the issues in your product.
So these are some of the things. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tarveen.
No worries, Erin, go ahead.
These are some of the things that we take into consideration for the fully accessible PDF. We've mentioned some of these already, but I'm going to go through what's listed here on the slide. We have document properties and metadata, heading and structure, your tagging and structure, your language, so the language of the main document, as well as language of parts. That's really important. Making sure that hyperlinks are both active and noted. Instead of like click here, it'll tell you exactly where you're going to click. Again, your color contrast, ensuring your lists and tables are authored correctly, the bookmarks are there, form fields and interactive content, and your keyboard navigation. These, when you make sure that your compliance is aligned to these different categories, you'll be meeting those universal accessibility standards, which are the UA standards that we had mentioned at the beginning. Those are across the board best practices for ensuring that your PDFs are accessible and compliant. Parveen, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I think, thank you, Erin. You have covered almost all the points. These are the key pointers to focus on. Please ensure you do the check mark on the checklist. This is the kind of a checklist you should follow. Yes, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and this is my compliance report. That's how you should proceed and ensure this is being tested manually.
Right. Thank you so much for that, ladies. Can you talk to us a little bit about PDFs in the world with AI?
AI is the buzzword for everything. So it's really important to understand that with the increase that we're seeing in AI, there will be more tools coming out, more quick ways to do some automation, make sure that PDFs are working correctly. It will also, it's not going to go away, but neither are PDFs, right? So it's important to understand, again, what is the base purpose of your format file? Is there a better, different way you can share that information? I know a lot of the conversations that are out there in the accessibility community and in the education community and different places are around the use of EPUBs instead of PDFs. And that is absolutely a good solution because an EPUB, as built in an HTML environment, has the different flexibilities and accessibility components built into it. But it's not always the best right way for your content and your purpose. And that's okay. I think that's what really a big key here is that PDFs are not going away. It's okay to keep using them, and let's do our best to make them accessible. Some other things that are out there with PDF environments, I know Adobe has released something that's called liquid mode, wherein you can take your properly structured file. And when you're on a mobile device, I'm pointing at my cell phone, when you're on a mobile device, you can click on liquid mode and it will take it and it will move it into a reflowable format where you can increase the size, you can do different things with it. So if you think about going to a restaurant, especially post-pandemic, a lot of places ask you to scan a QR code and that pulls up your menu. Sometimes it's literally a PDF of the menu and you're zooming in and scrolling and pinching and zooming. And that's a fine way, but not always the best way and not the best way for everybody. So liquid mode is one of those things that allows you to take properly structured PDF and look at it in a different format. And again, thinking about the purpose of your document, if you have a lot of input fields and you're trying to gather information, could you consider transferring that information from a PDF into a web page where you have those input fields and everything is being captured through a native environment in an HTML? That is a possibility, something you want to think about and something you can consider doing, but it's not required. Again, if you still need to utilize and capture data from a PDF, there are ways to work with that file format to make sure it's accessible. They're not perfect documents, we all know that, but they're also not going to go away. They have been around for so long that people are very comfortable with them, and they also do provide a lot of value. Tarveen, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you have covered everything. And yes, as we know that AI is drastically changing week on week, we can expect something to come up for this. But yes, PDF has its own complexity and nuances. We need to understand that before we start relying on any AI generated outcome. If there is any, please do test and ensure it's manually tested before you start relying on it 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, ladies. All right, so now we're going to move into our Q&A portion. Just to reiterate, as I said in the beginning, you can drop any questions that you have in the Q&A box. We already have one, so we'll start with that one. Lillian asked, most PDFs are Word docs that have been converted. Does Word present the same challenges, or can we actually make those improvements in Word and then create a more accessible PDF? Thank you.
Yeah, so that is a great question. And it would be best and ultimate if you created your Word, your source file, to be as accessible as possible, because then you are already using the built-in list or table features, or you're using the built-in header structures. So when you then run the accessibility check in your Word file, then save that as a PDF, of those features are going to carry over. There will still be some work you need to do in your PDF. As I mentioned, always checking your read order, making sure your title is there, whatnot. But the more work you can do from an accessible structure format from your source file, be it a Word file or an InDesign file, the better off your PDF will be and the less remediation you will have to do.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Erin. Okay, so we had some questions in the chat about tagging. So a second question came in and said, is it correct to include art tags inside of a sec tag?
Yes, we can do the nesting and have, first of all, these tags are for HTML, and thank you for raising the query on HTML tags. Yes, you can do nesting of art tags inside a section or vice versa, but please ensure you convey the proper hierarchy and relationship while doing these sections and articles within your HTML document. That's what you need to ensure. But yes, we can use them, and you use them in a vice versa manner as well.
All right, thanks, Tarveen. Those are all the questions we have for right now, but we'll give you guys a minute in case you think of anything and you want to drop something.
And we also wanted to convey and thank you everyone for joining the EU session. And we all know that we are moving towards the EU compliance state. It's not about date, it's about how we are ensuring that your content is more inclusive and more accessible to billions of people around the globe. So don't focus only towards meeting the end date and being more compliant or worried about the lawsuits. We should aim for ensuring accessibility is embedded into our entire journey, and we talk, breathe, and convey accessibility every time if we hold the charter of that within our organization. And we'll be continuing with the same series of session. In case you need any support, any questions, you can drop us email. We are happy to support during this journey. So Erin, do you want to add anything?
I do, and I appreciate you saying all of that. I think it's really important. First of all, thank you for being here, because just your presence shows your awareness and your passion for making things to be accessible. And it's not an overnight process. It's not a once and done situation. So there's always going to be ways to keep moving forward and keep making that progress. And along those lines, if you weren't already aware, Thursday of this week is Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which is kind of like a mini holiday for those of us in the accessibility community. And as a part of the Magically Live series that we do host, we are hosting an event on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'm sorry, I'm not good with my time zone changes, but I don't know what time that is where you are. However, that event is going to be about building an accessibility practice within your organization. So we would love it if you have the time and would like to join that. That would be really great. But as Tarveen said, we will be continuing these conversations. We've been doing Magically Live for a couple of months now, so we would love to have your participation as we move forward and continue to support you in your efforts with accessibility.
Yes, we have one more question. Anjali, you want to check it out?
Yes. It is from Lillian, and she asked, are there any good alternatives to PDFs that are more accessible?
Yes, we do have alternatives, and the best, more accessible and reliable is EPUBs. And considering we have two different versions of EPUB, either reflow or fixed layout, it will all the more depend on what you want to achieve. But we always recommend moving to reflow because it helps you meet more compliance in terms of zoom, reflow, and other kind of interactive content can be placed within your EPUB and make your content more interactive and inclusive. So yes, EPUB is another alternative that people end up moving towards if they don't want to make PDFs accessible.
Thank you so much, Charvine. All righty. If those are all of the questions that you have for us, I think that we can wrap it up here. Like the lady said, we will be continuing this. So if there are any topics that you are interested in seeing that you think would be helpful, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we will definitely take a look into them. But thank you so much for joining us for this first installment of Magically Live in the EU. We are very excited to be starting this, and we can't wait to see you guys again.
Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thanks all. Glad to have you here.